Garage door open at approximately 9:48 p.m. At 9:50 p.m., that garage door closes. It is that time we assume that Nancy's home and probably going to bed.
A garage door opens around 9:48 p.m., followed shortly by another event. 2 minutes later, it shuts, suggesting Nancy Guthrie is safe inside and settling in. Her final timeline is now public. Police, NBC, and all major networks have officially verified these facts. Yet buried within that official report from January 31st lies a specific point that most people have completely overlooked. It is a precise, undeniable fact that has been oddly ignored until now. Tonight, we are putting it front and center. We provide verified data, official sources, and collective insights here. Speculation is clearly marked and sources are cited. 2 minutes. That specific window of time is the crux of our investigation. It is not a rumor or a random internet post. It is a 2-minute gap straight from the official records of Nancy Guthrie's last seen movements. Once you understand the full picture and weigh it against what this community has discovered over the past few weeks, the reason why authorities are staying silent during press briefings will become crystal clear. You will see why this has become such a massive talking point and why it is our sole priority tonight. This is a high-priority federal inquiry, not a forgotten file. The FBI is now on it. Local sheriffs and federal agents are burning the midnight oil on this case as we speak. Tonight's focus is that 2-minute window where a door opened and then closed. This is an established fact in the police files. The detectives are well aware of it. The real test is whether the public will demand a formal explanation for what happened in those moments. Let us establish the basic facts first. We need to be on the same page, though. I know most of you are already deeply invested in this story. You have followed every update and every news cycle since this began. Nancy Guthrie is 84, a sharp and independent woman with a massive heart for her family. She calls Tucson, Arizona home. Her son happens to be Craig Melvin, a well-known face on NBC's Today Show. Because of that, the world is watching, and the police cannot afford to let this investigation stall out. That kind of public pressure is a powerful tool, and tonight that pressure is going to hit a very specific pressure point. Nancy was last seen on January 31st. By the time the alarm was raised, the lead had already gone dry, causing massive frustration for everyone involved. The Pima County Sheriff's Department, or PCSD, has been incredibly tight-lipped about their findings. It isn't a mess, it's a calculated professional silence. For anyone who follows true crime, that usually means they are sitting on a critical piece of evidence. Everyone wants to know what they are hiding. Tonight, we are showing you one piece. We also need to address how high the stakes have become at this stage of the search. When a missing person case goes federal and brings in the FBI, especially with constant national media coverage, the rules of engagement change. Nothing reaching the public is a mistake. Every word and every silence is intentional. Every press release from the sheriff's office is carefully vetted. Every update is weighed. In this environment, what they omit is just as telling as what they admit. Investigators manage the story by controlling the clock, not by being dishonest. They decide when a detail is ready for the world, and this garage door timing has been kept under wraps. Let's look at the night of January 31st, a Saturday evening. Official reports and NBC coverage confirm Nancy Guthrie arrived at her Tucson residence at 9:48 p.m. This 9:48 p.m. arrival perfectly matches the timeline provided by her family. Proof of her arrival comes straight from the garage door activity. After spending her evening away from home, she finally returned. She was dropped off at the house, and digital logs confirm her garage opened at 9:48 p.m. It fits the typical pattern of someone arriving home and using a remote or a smartphone app. She pulls up, and the door rolls up. That moment marks the very start of that night's official sequence of events. Let's look closer at what 9:48 p.m. on a Tucson Saturday actually means for an 84-year-old. This wasn't some late-night return at 2 in the morning. This wasn't a case of someone rolling in at a suspicious hour. Getting home before 10 p.m. is perfectly normal for an active socialite. People close to Nancy say she wasn't the type to just stay cooped up inside. She had a life, she went out, and that Saturday was no different. She came home and the garage door opened. Everything seemed routine and expected. There was zero reason for concern until you see the next detail. Just 2 minutes later, according to the timeline verified by the sheriff's department and news outlets, the garage door shut. At 9:50 p.m., the door closes, marking the moment we'd assume Nancy was settling in for the night. You might wonder why that matters. Doors open and close all the time, right? And you'd be correct. That's exactly what they're designed for. But the real mystery, the one nobody in authority is talking about, is what actually triggered that door to shut. The answer changes everything. To understand the significance, we have to look at the mechanics of how these modern systems work. This isn't just technical talk, it's crucial to the case. There are 3 specific ways these doors close after being opened. Option 1, someone standing inside the garage physically hits the wall-mounted switch. That's the standard move for someone who just parked and is heading into the house. Option 2, someone uses a remote like a clicker in the car or a handheld key fob. Or they use a mobile app linked to a smart home setup. Option 3, the door is on a timer. It's what pros call an auto-close setting, which shuts the door after a set amount of time. It happens automatically, regardless of whether a person is there to do it. Many modern systems have this for safety, usually set in 5-minute blocks to keep the home secure. Each of these 3 paths leads to a very different conclusion about what happened at Nancy's place on the night of January 31st. If Nancy hit that button herself as she walked inside, that's the most logical theory. It would mean she successfully transitioned from the garage into her living space. She was moving around just fine. She was following her usual nightly routine. That would be a relief because it shows she was mobile and alert right after she got home. However, if that door was on an automatic timer, then that 9:50 p.m. closure tells us absolutely nothing about what happened during those 2 minutes. It would just mean a clock ran out. In that case, the 2-minute gap is just a background setting, not a clue. But if it wasn't a timer and Nancy didn't push the button herself, then there's only one conclusion left. Something else forced that door shut. Someone else triggered it manually or by remote just 2 minutes after Nancy got back. The police already know which one it is. Smart garage logs are extremely detailed, showing timestamps and specific devices. They track exactly which phone or remote sent the signal when it happened and the location. Manual wall buttons don't leave a digital trail, but the absence of app data would prove the trigger was physical. Investigators could get those records in a heartbeat with a simple warrant. Yet, throughout every press briefing and official update from the department, they haven't mentioned this detail once. Nancy lived by herself, which brings up the question of her staff and who else had access to her home. Reports have confirmed that Nancy lived alone. No one is arguing against that fact. But it's also well known that Nancy had people working for her at the house. She employed staff to help maintain the property and assist with her daily needs. That's pretty common for someone in her position. This means a specific group of people held keys or codes to her residence, a select group of people with the right codes to enter. But here is the catch that every journalist and true crime fan realizes without it being said out loud. Staff on site at 9:48 p.m. on a Saturday. Just process that. It wasn't a Tuesday at noon or a typical Friday morning cleaning. The main theory, and where any detective would start, is that the help shouldn't be in the garage at that time of night. Of course, that could be a mistake. Plans change, employees get called in for emergencies, families sometimes have last-minute needs. So we can't just rule that out yet, but the standard take from anyone who understands luxury household roles is that no employee is in NY's garage at 9:50 p.m. on a Saturday without a clear written reason. And the authorities definitely have that data. They likely questioned every staff member within the first 48 hours of the case. They would have checked call logs between Nancy or her family and the staff on January 31st. They know if someone was summoned. They know if someone was expected or if any key fobs were used at the garage entrance that evening. All of that information is currently part of the official file. It just hasn't been leaked to the public yet. Now about those entry points and the flower pots. Let's pull our focus back from the garage and look at the whole residence. Since the garage is just one of several doors being scrutinized, it's only part of the story. Grasping what they found at the other entrances is the only way to make sense of the garage door situation. NY's home in Tucson is a standard single-family house. It has a front bell camera, a back entrance, and a garage. What we've learned from the sources we're about to list is specifically about the rear of that property. This brings us to Ashley Banfield's report on the Drop Dead Serious podcast, and we want to be very precise here. This specific detail comes from one law enforcement contact mentioned by Banfield. It is currently a single-source assertion. We've put the attribution on your screen now, as we always do for clarity. According to her, the back door at Nancy Guthrie's place was found propped open using flower pots. The person involved used New York's own plants to do this. He took the lovely pots she likely spent hours tending to and used them for his sinister intentions. Let that sink in. Flower pots positioned at two different back doors so they couldn't actually lock. Those heavy pots didn't move there by themselves. Someone had to place them. The real question for the investigation, not an attack, just a question, is when they were moved and why. The innocent view is that Nancy put them there for her own reasons. Maybe she wanted some air or was waiting for a delivery out back. Perhaps she moved them earlier and just hadn't put them back yet. If so, they mean absolutely nothing. They would just be a weird coincidence that looks scary in hindsight, but isn't a threat. The scary view is that someone who knew the house used those pots to create an easy exit that wouldn't trigger any sensors or leave signs of a break-in. Someone who knew the layout well enough to pick the perfect doors. Someone with the time to set it up who had clearly been inside before. The community has been torn between those two ideas since that report came out. And now everyone is looking at that garage door again, that verified footage from 9:50 p.m., and wondering if it links back to the flower pots. Now let's talk about the doorbell camera. You can't explain what happened on January 31st without looking at that camera. This isn't just a rumor, it's confirmed info from the sheriff's department. At 1:47 a.m. on Sunday morning, the doorbell camera suddenly cuts out. 1:47 in the morning. No power cut, no neighborhood-wide crash, and no known tech bug. Just Nancy Guthrie's camera on the night she went missing at exactly 1:47 a.m. Police aren't saying exactly how that camera got disconnected. We don't know if someone cut it manually inside the house or just killed the signal via an app. Authorities haven't mentioned any physical damage or signs of hardware tampering. Was it glitchy before? They aren't saying. The only solid fact we have is the exact time it died, 1:47 a.m. If you're mapping this out, we've got a clear window. Nancy pulls into the driveway at 9:48 p.m. The garage opens, then shuts 2 minutes later. After that, everything that happened is being kept under lock and key. Suddenly, at 1:47 a.m., the front-facing lens, the only thing watching the main entrance, just stops recording. Based on the verified clock, whatever went down with Nancy happened between 9:48 that night and 1:47 that morning. This isn't just a guess. It's not an accusation. It's simply what the timeline tells us when you line up the proven facts. Detectives admit this is the order of events, yet they refuse to elaborate. We're looking at a very specific pattern here. This is where our collective deep dive really starts to matter. Not to replace the police work, but to keep the pressure on for real answers. After weeks of tracking every lead on this channel and watching the news reports, a clear picture is emerging. Between NBC reports and official statements, a trend is taking shape. In cases like this, we need to call out patterns exactly as they are. Take the back door, it was held open by flower pots. The rear gate was also wedged open with pots. Then the front door camera cuts out at 1:47 a.m. The garage, the third way into the house, it opened and shut, but nobody has explained why it closed when it did. We've been calling this managed access. It's when someone intentionally alters multiple ways in and out of a home. They set things up to bypass security systems or silent alarms, avoiding any broken locks or incriminating footage. Those flower pots out back, they won't set off any motion detectors. A door left slightly ajar just looks like a mistake, like it didn't click shut properly. Killing that front camera effectively wipes the visual record clean. A perfectly timed garage cycle makes it look like Nancy just arrived and settled in for the night. We're calling this a logical deduction. To be clear, these aren't proven facts, yet just what the data suggests. It's using hard logic to connect the dots between verified data points. This theory fits perfectly with everything we know, and nothing the police have released proves it wrong. Look at what the Pima County Sheriff's Department is choosing to share and what they're hiding. Their silence speaks volumes. Sheriff Chris Nanos has stood before the mics and put out several official briefings. They've locked in certain times, the 9:48 p.m. arrival and that 1:47 a.m. blackout. They've confirmed the FBI is involved. The FBI and the local sheriff's office are now running this as a joint operation. Starting off, there's now a $50,000 reward for any tips that bring Nancy Guthrie home. When you only have a few solid facts refusing to explain, one of them really stands out. This doesn't prove a cover-up or that they've messed up. Cops usually hold back info to keep the investigation tight and avoid spooking any suspects. They save key evidence to surprise the defense during a future trial. Sometimes talking too much can just scare off people who are willing to talk. Those are all fair points, but they only apply if the info is actually sensitive. A timer closing a door isn't a state secret. Telling us that wouldn't tip off a criminal or ruin the case. It's harmless info that would actually stop the rumors and help us focus on what really matters. Choosing to stay silent about it, if it really was just a timer, is definitely strange. And we aren't the only ones who noticed. We're just waiting for a simple answer from the sheriff, the FBI, or the family to explain that specific garage door timestamp. Forget the broad strokes. Let's get surgical. Did Nancy shut it? Did a timer kick in? Or did the system logs reveal a secret hand? This needs to be officially documented so the brass can't ignore it. That brings us to the workers and the house next door. There is another unfolding lead, one that points straight to someone intimately familiar with the floor plan and the property's inner workings. Someone who knew the gates and the schedule well enough to map out a path in the shadows. We are talking about the construction crews and the nearby lot. Everyone here has been tracking the timeline of when Nancy vanished, digging into exactly who was authorized to be on those grounds during the preceding months. Repair crews and service staff naturally learn the layout of a job site, including those hidden side entrances, gate placements, and the garage's exact setup, security lens spots, and daily habits. Knowing these things isn't necessarily a crime. Yet if someone manipulated several entries pinpointing who already had the keys to that knowledge is vital. Our group is also eyeing that empty house next door, a ghost building that could serve as a perfect lookout spot, staying invisible to Nancy's own security sensors. Standard police procedure dictates a full sweep of every nearby building during a major search. Did they actually look? What turned up? Whether that lot is a piece of the puzzle remains a total mystery to the public. Our goal isn't to point fingers or play judge and jury, but to ask the core question, who knew the layout? That garage door is just one piece of the map. Federal agents are officially on the Nancy Guthrie case. We still don't know the exact spark that turned a local search into a federal operation. The feds usually only step in when certain red flags are raised. Potential abductions over state borders, Lindbergh law violations or signs of human exploitation, offenses occurring on government soil or breaking specific federal codes, or when local cops admit they are out of their depth and ask for backup. Hitting any of those marks would reveal how the pros are actually viewing Nancy's disappearance. But the real reason is still kept under wraps. We've been glued to the updates coming out of the Drop Dead Serious reports, noting this specific source on screen regarding the mention of an additional security lens, a device near the scene that the task force has already scrutinized. It's one source for now, but if that tape exists and caught something during those critical minutes, the FBI has it. They've dissected every frame, and their silence is a calculated move for the ongoing federal probe. That garage door might not be a puzzle to the agents whatsoever. If video exists of those 2 minutes from 9:48 to 9:50, then the authorities likely have the full story of that time frame. They could know who was inside and what forced that door shut. If they have the answers, it's not about if they'll talk. It's about when the case is ready for the truth to go viral. The federal angle adds depth. Let's be crystal clear about our objective tonight, because precision is our creed. We aren't here to critique the police work. No suspects are being named, and we aren't saying the door alone proves a crime. We won't leap to conclusions. We are just hunting for one specific answer. Who shut that door? That's the entire mystery. Forget the bigger picture for a second. Ignore the planters or the camera glitches for now, just this one thing. Around 9:50 p.m. on January 31st, something triggered Nancy's door to shut just 2 minutes after she pulled in. Then it shut. But why? We are looking at 3 distinct possibilities, starting with the idea that Nancy hit the button herself. Was it a manual click, a remote, or perhaps just a preset timer? It could have been the garage system's internal programming or an outside party, someone lurking nearby with access to the controls. Every one of these theories can be tested. Digital logs for these modern smart systems are device-linked and carry precise timestamps. Investigators can pull physical records from the remote's internal memory to see exactly which unit was used and the specific time it happened. You can recover auto-close configurations directly from the hardware. Plus, Nancy's inner circle would know her daily habits, like whether she even used an automatic timer. They would know if she preferred the wall switch, her keychain remote, or if she strictly used her smartphone. These are not the kind of questions that require months of high-tech lab work. A solid investigation should have cleared this up within the first few days. The data is out there. This information is already part of the official file, yet it is being kept entirely hidden from the public. Here is why that silence is so suspicious. If the door closed because of a boring old timer Nancy set years ago, there is absolutely no reason for the police to withhold that. There is zero benefit to a future trial in keeping a timer setting top secret. Routine information is usually released early in high-profile cases just to clear the air. It allows the community and the press to stop chasing dead ends and start looking at what actually matters. The fact that this simple explanation has not been offered is a major red flag in itself. It does not prove a crime occurred, but it is a detail this community has every right to notice and question. The authorities have the answer. We are just waiting to see when and how they will let us in on it. Now for the big question, who actually closed that door? Everything we have discussed tonight has been leading up to this exact moment. We are not claiming to have the final answer, and we never would. However, the 2 paths this evidence takes are so wildly different in their implications. We need to lay them out side by side so you can see exactly what was at stake during those crucial 2 minutes. Path 1. Nancy was the one who closed the garage. She pulls up at 9:48 p.m. The door opens via her app, her car, or her remote. She walks into the garage, heading past her vehicle and toward the interior entrance. She taps the wall button or hits her remote. By 9:50 p.m., the door is down and she is safely inside her home. Everything seems routine. She is just a woman going through the normal motions of returning home after a typical Saturday night. Under this theory, the garage door is a total non-issue, just a boring expected part of her evening routine. But then sometime between 9:50 p.m. and 1:47 in the morning, right before the front camera went dark, something happened inside that house that we still cannot explain. In this version of events, that garage door is simply a marker of time. It shows the last time things were normal. Whatever happened to Nancy Guthrie occurred behind closed doors in the hours that followed. It is still a terrifying thought. It means an intruder gained access to her sanctuary while she was there. We still need answers, but it shifts the focus to after the door was already shut rather than the 2 minutes before. Critically, this changes how we look at those flower pots in the back. If Nancy was home alone, those pots were either there before she arrived or placed by someone who snuck in through the rear entrance at a different time. Consequently, the timing of those pots compared to her 9:48 arrival is something neighbor footage or security clips could likely solve. Whether the police have actually looked into that remains a mystery. Path 2. Nancy did not touch that door. She arrives at 9:48 p.m. The door opens, but in the next 2 minutes, something happens that stops her from being the one to close it. Maybe she walked in and was immediately confronted by a situation that prevented her from acting. Or maybe the door was shut by someone already waiting in the shadows of the garage. Someone who had slipped in through the back, the door held open by those flower pots, and was ready the second she pulled in. Or it was triggered by someone watching from afar, knowing they had to seal the scene to hide what was happening inside. In this scenario, the garage door is not a sign of normalcy, it is a sign of a trap. This marks the starting point of a darker chapter, beginning when that garage door slid up at 9:48 and clicking shut just 2 minutes later. Under the second theory, every established fact takes on a completely different shape. Those planters by the rear entrance aren't just decor, they're strategic staging. It's calculated control, not a fluke. The front porch camera cutting out at 1:47 in the morning looks like a digital cleanup, a deliberate erasure of evidence once the job was done. That tiny 2-minute gap between the door opening and closing suddenly becomes the only timeline that actually matters. 2 minutes. That brief interval is the absolute heart of our investigation tonight. Depending on which version of events is true and who pushed that button, those 2 minutes are either irrelevant or the ultimate smoking gun. We have two paths here. Nancy Guthrie has a heart regulator, a fact confirmed through multiple public statements from her own family. In a high-stakes search for a missing person, that medical device is far more than just a piece of healthcare tech. It's a goldmine of time-stamped biological evidence. Think of modern pacemakers as internal black boxes for the body. The hardware used for patients of Nancy Guthrie's age and history are elite digital systems that do much more than just keep a steady beat. They act as constant monitors. These modern devices log every cardiac shift, heart rate spike, and irregular rhythm in real time. Many current models even beam this sensitive data straight to a cloud system managed by the patient's doctor. The intel stored on January 31st could provide clues that no witness or grainy security footage could ever hope to match. A racing pulse that might indicate a physical struggle or a moment of pure panic. Or perhaps a sudden devastating medical emergency. Conversely, a steady calm heartbeat through the morning of February 1st would prove Nancy Guthrie was safe and resting through the night. Whatever that hardware captured before losing its connection is an objective, medically precise record that doesn't rely on a faulty human memory. It doesn't care about witness cooperation, and it's a digital footprint that no one can go back and edit. Law enforcement can pull that data if they secure the right medical search warrants. Whether they've actually checked it is the mystery this community is obsessed with, yet the sheriff's department hasn't breathed a word about it. No official briefing has mentioned it, which is strange for a case that lives and dies by a specific minute-by-minute timeline. The chance to see a physiological map of Nancy Guthrie's condition on that Tuesday night is something the public deserves to hear about. While the device won't explain why the garage door closed, it provides a solid scientific anchor in a sea of theories that desperately need some hard facts to hold on to. Our community will be watching closely to see if this medical evidence ever makes it into an official police report. That heart monitor is just one more loose end. Before we wrap up, let's be crystal clear about what our team is hunting for. This isn't about guessing the ending. It's about tracking specific milestones in the public record that will either solve or complicate this mystery. First, we're waiting for a formal update from the local police or the federal investigators, or perhaps a spokesperson for the Guthrie family who can finally explain that garage door sequence. Not just a vague summary, we need to know exactly who or what triggered that door to close at 9:50 p.m. If the authorities come out and say it was a preset timer, or if digital logs prove Nancy Guthrie closed it herself, then this specific mystery is solved and we can move on. But if they stay silent or the story changes, we'll keep digging. Second, we're looking for that secondary camera footage mentioned in recent reports. If the police are sitting on video from another device that caught movement near the house that night, any leak or update regarding that footage, a legal filing, or a simple confirmation from the chief of police would change the entire gravity of tonight's discussion. Third, we are keeping a very close eye on the DNA and genetic genealogy side of the house. It might not link back to the garage door mystery, but the momentum of that DNA search tells us exactly how close investigators are to making a massive breakthrough in this case. This type of high-tech detective work doesn't follow a schedule. It's at the mercy of LabQ's database hits and boots-on-the-ground follow-up. Any official word that they've found a lead through DNA would completely flip the script on how we view this entire disappearance. Fourth, we need more eyes on those reports about the flower pots. Right now, that's just a single-source rumor that hasn't been verified. Nobody has officially denied it, but no second source has stepped up to confirm it either. Until that happens, it stays a question mark. This unconfirmed but likely info is where we should focus our analysis. Note, we're just observing, not reaching a final verdict. Any news on when those backyard planters were moved? Were they moved before January 31st while away or while home? Solving that sequence reveals if backyard access targeted Nancy or was random. Public officials haven't touched this yet. It's likely the biggest unanswered question in Nancy Guthrie's case. Nancy Guthrie's final evening was simple. She arrived at 9:48 p.m. After 2 minutes, the garage shut and Nancy vanished from public view. We're still waiting for officials to explain those 2 missing minutes. We won't stop watching. We'll keep investigating every lead until Nancy Guthrie comes home. This video promotes community awareness and information only. We verified every claim for accuracy before posting. Sources are cited. No criminal accusations are made here. These theories are analytical inferences, not established facts. Tips: contact the Pima County Sheriff or the FBI line. Find both official links in the description. We exist to ask the tough questions. We're not stopping. We'll keep showing up for Nancy. We surround our homes with technology, believing that doorbell cameras, smart locks, and automatic garage doors are enough to keep the darkness at bay. They give us a comforting yet fragile illusion of absolute security. However, as the chilling disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie so tragically reveals, a digital fortress is never a substitute for true human vigilance. In just 2 fleeting minutes, a safe sanctuary can silently turn into a trap. The profound lesson buried in these haunting cases is an urgent emotional plea for community and connection. Our aging parents, grandparents, and neighbors carry a fierce independence, but they remain vulnerable in a world that moves too fast. We cannot outsource their safety to motion sensors and timed electronics. It takes only a moment to pick up the phone, to walk across the street, and to look them in the eye. Do not let the final memory of someone you love be reduced to a cold, unexplained timestamp on a police report. We must bridge the terrifying gap between modern security and human empathy. Look out for your neighbors, protect your elders, and remember that the most unbreakable lock is a community that deeply cares. Do not wait until the cameras go dark to pay attention.